G'day, I'm Colin Dangard and welcome back to the Colin Dangard Show. I'm going to talk about talking with horses. So you have a horse and sometimes you wonder, you're talking with the horse and you're wondering, does this horse understand me? Well, I'm here to tell you that in all my experience, and now well over half a century, that horse is listening. Sure, they don't speak the English language, but they're very intuitive. Intuitive meaning they can read your mood, you approach them, you might be 20 yards away from them, they look up from their grazing, whatever they're doing, and they look at you. Right there they've made a total assessment of you. Remember, the horse is a prey animal, so it takes into account any movement around it. They shy, they duck, they weave, they do all sorts of things because that's how they've survived 50 million years. We've only been around 5 million years, so they say. So when we were doing what we were doing 5 million years ago, the horse had already been on the planet, living its life for 45 million years. So you got to think about this, that they have heard many sounds and many attempts to communicate with them, and then along we come, and our first relationship with the horse was to eat it. Well, we ate everything 5 million years ago, and we kept eating horses through the thousands of years. In fact, in France, they still eat horses. So we haven't changed that much. But what has changed is the horse is becoming more human, if you would, because of its close relationship with us. We talk with the horse, and if you think that horse is not listening, well, you're drawing a blank there, which you should look at again. Talk to the horse. Is he understanding you? You can be very sure he is understanding you. And if you've got some doubts about that, just raise your voice. Say, hello, horse, how are you? Horse, horse, don't do that. Oh, you'll see a big reaction, wouldn't you? Huge reaction. So yes, the horse understands you in an intuitive way. You make a sudden movement, it makes a sudden hearing, a sudden feeling. A horse feels the earth movement in the earth from 50 feet away. It can sense another living creature half a mile away. They're unbelievably intuitive and instinctive, whereas we are not really. We have, I guess one time we would have been when we used our reptilian brain, which sits on top of our spine rather, and we talked in grunts, I guess, because that's what everybody did back then, and autistic people today still make sudden movements and talk in grunts and things because they are using their old reptilian brain, and that's why they're autistic. That's one of the symptoms of autism. They're not using the frontal lobe, which I'm using now as best I can. And you're listening as best you can with your frontal lobe. So my frontal lobe's in communication with yours. Now, the horse doesn't have a frontal lobe. However, it has tremendous antenna in other areas. So you approach a horse, and as I said, he's assessed you in your approach. That's his instinct. That's why he's lasted 50 million years, because he's very instinctive about whether there's danger here or not. If you go up and you're just casually walking, the horse has registered all of that and said, oh, yeah, this is okay. And you can pat the horse and, well, how are you, horse? Would he understand how are you, horse? No, not in a diction way, he wouldn't, but he certainly would in an emotional way, in an intuitive way. He has assessed your manner of speech, and he's going, oh, this is okay. the boss is very happy today, so this is good. And he'll go, do one of those nice little things and drop his head a little, and you can pat his neck. And if you look at scratch his neck where horses scratch each other, you'll notice when horses are communicating and expressing affection for each other, the first thing they do is grab the neck. Grab the hair on the top of the neck, and that's if a stallion's romancing a mare, that's what he'll do. He'll get into that area and tug on it a little and gnash on it a little. Well, that's a sign of affection. We kiss each other on our lips, and that's our sign of affection. Well, they go for the mane, where the mane is just coming up a little bit from the withers, and you scratch that, and you'll see. Note how the eye of the horse is now getting heavier and heavier, especially if you talk to the horse and say, "Oh, good horse, yeah, you are so pretty. Whoa, look at you, aren't you nice?" And if you're saying those nice things, well, your voice is carrying with it the rhythm of nice. And so the horse will relax a lot. Now you can look at the effect that's having on the horse. First of all, he won't be moving around with his feet. He won't be doing steps and this way and that way, and his feet will be calm. Then look at his eyes. His eyes are going to be heavy. They're getting heavier. He's having trouble holding his lids up because he's going into a mild pre-sleep trance. Look at his tail. This tail will be hanging straight down. It won't be swishing or turning in a circle. And his head will be dropping the more you do that, and the more you talk with him. Is he understanding you? Not in, as I said, not in a dictionary way, but he certainly is getting your mood. And the horse is extremely sensitive to our mood, to our spirit, if you would. Spirit would be the right word there. The horse has a spirit too. So our spirit is now getting to his spirit, and the spirit of the horse is now talking to you, to your spirit. And this is a good thing. You're talking and you're rubbing the horse and doing this. That's a bit on the periphery, but it's an important appendage to what I'm saying here. And if you can get a horse to listen to you, that's the first step towards asking the horse to do something. And I'm say asking, I don't say training, because training to me is you're disciplining the horse. You punish it if it does something wrong. It doesn't not wrong, but if it's not doing what you want to do, you give it a good smack. And if it does something nice, you say, "Good horse, good horse." Well, that's good, but you have to be very, very careful with the negative hit on the rump, and don't ever be abusive to a horse, because a horse will forget that you were kind to them. The horse will never forget that you hit him. He'll forget a kind moment. That just goes, because it's not a big moment. You get heavy-handed with a horse, and he'll never forget that. The more heavy-handed you are, the less likely he is to forget it. So being rough with horses is never a good idea. I come from the bush in Australia, where I'm on reflection, I am appalled at the way we treated horses. We just treated them like machines, and I objected to that when I was in the bush. I objected to the way stockmen treated their horses, ringers we call them, you call them cowboys. I just didn't see that was necessary, because you can get much more out of a horse with kindness and by talking with them. And so the horse is getting a lot from the sound of your voice. It is very, very important to talk with them and express if you're if you're not happy with them, say, you know, Roger, I'm not happy with you today. I wish you were just a little bit smarter or something. Well, you might think, well, Roger's looking at you and say, well, that doesn't sound like, oh, Roger, you're such a beautiful horse. He's picked up the difference there right away. One is a cautionary tale, the other is outward affection. And the more you do that, the more the horse is going to come to you. And that's a good thing. You can bribe a horse with grain or carrots or something, which is not a bad idea in the beginning, but you should stop doing that once he's got the thing. Once he's got the idea that if you're standing there, you want the horse to come to you. So say something nice. Say, oh, come on, Roger. Oh, you're so pretty today. Look how good you look. Look at all your muscles. You're such a good-looking horse. Come over here. Now you've got a carrot. Well, if Roger's a new horse for you, you might want to go up and give him the carrot. Give him some of the carrot anyhow. Then step back and try it again. And train, I'm using the word train, but train him to come to you. And pretty soon, after a couple of times, you won't need the carrot. You can just go there and stand there, which I advise you do. Get rid of the carrot as soon as you can. And when he comes over to you this time, and he comes right up to you, then give him a little carrot there, and give him a snack reward, which they'll go for every time. And pretty soon he won't be looking for that reward when he comes over to you. He'll be looking for that scratch on the neck, and then walk away and ask him to follow you. Say, come on, Roger, come on, let's go for a little walk. We can do this. And you can use that voice again, which you go, oh, this is good. Okay, so he's going to come over. So it's all a matter of kindness with horses and gentleness. And remember, slow everything down. I tend to talk fast because I get enthusiastic about something and rattle on. But really, that doesn't work for the horse. You've got to talk slowly and clearly and get the message you want to say in the tone of your voice. And never take your eye off him. Keep eye contact all the time. When I go riding with people, I'll be saddling them up and saddling up their horse and saddling up my horse, because I don't trust anybody to saddle horses. And I'll say, okay, we'll go for a ride up in those mountains there. I said, now one thing I must tell you, I said, I don't like to talk when I'm riding, because I like to talk with the horse. And I do. I talk constantly to the horse when I'm riding it. I'll say, oh, look at that over there. Look at that, Tika. I got a horse called Tika. It's my favourite horse at the moment. Look over there, Tika. Look at that big rock. And I'll look at the rock, and it'll be an experiment to see if he also looks at the rock. Now, he mightn't the first time, so to make sure he understands what I'm saying, I'll take him over to the rock and say, yeah, this is the rock, okay? Next day, when I'm riding him again, I'll get in that same position. I'll say, Tika, look at that rock over there. And 9 times out of 10, he will turn his head towards the rock. And that's when I know I've communicated with him, just with my voice. I don't use any leg cues or any of that. And you can do this little exercise with buckets in the corral. Have a red bucket and have a yellow bucket. Put the yellow bucket over there and the red bucket over there, and concentrate on the red bucket. When he's some distance from you, look at the red bucket. Look at him and look back at the red bucket. Don't say anything, just look at him. Look at the red bucket. Look at him, look at the red bucket. And visualize you are talking on a telephone. When you're talking with somebody on a phone, is actually connected electronically, and now in the old days it was connected with a long line of wire. So you have to establish that connection between your mind and the mind of the horse, your spirit and the spirit of the horse. There is a connection, and it's a telegraphic connection. And the reaction of the horse is certainly intuitive. he's going to react when you can get the message to him. And you can experiment with that. And, look at the red bucket. Just looking at the red bucket and say, oh, that's a nice red bucket. Oh, that's a beautiful bucket. Never seen such a beautiful red bucket. And he will be looking at, when he's looking at the bucket now, he's turning to the bucket, you know you've made a connection. You haven't done anything other than look at that bucket. Now, next day, go and look at the yellow bucket. Leave the red bucket there, but look at the yellow bucket and do that exercise there. And then you can elevate a little bit more, and after he's gone over that yellow bucket, and then you can call him to you. Say, come on, come over here. Come on now, come over here. And he will start walking to you. And your reward then is you've done the carrot thing, you've done the horse treat thing, just a little bit. Now your reward is going to be, yeah, good horse, and scratch him on that neck there. And you'll see he'll drop his head down and go, Now you're communicating with the horse. Now you can start working with the horse. You want him to do big jumps. Well, horses think that's a stupid idea to jump over something when they can walk around it. So they're a bit confused, which is why they want to duck out when you're starting to urge them over jumps. Because they think, well, that's pretty stupid. Why are we going over this thing when we can go around it? So you've got to convince them that what you want to do is go over it, not around it. That's your thought. But now you've already established a line of communication with these steps I've told you to do. So now you are talking with the horse. I first got onto this idea when I was a kid and couldn't speak properly, and I'm in the bush and had my horse Queenie, and then I'm pretty much there alone. My dad suggested it was a very good idea not to have me in the house because I was a bit troublesome. I had a bad stammer and couldn't speak properly. So I started talking with Queenie, and sure enough, I started talking normally because I'm talking with a horse. There's no anxiety there, and so I started talking with Queenie, and I could call over to her and she'd come to me, or I'd say, Queenie, and not call her over. Stay, I'd say stay, like treat her like I'd treat a dog. Just say stay, and she'd stay. So she's learning what I want by what I'm saying. So that's how you should do. And actually, when you think about it, we do it with each other. You go to some place and you see a beautiful girl over there. Well, you're not gonna go over and give her a good old push over and say, yeah, come on, I want to take you home. You don't do that, do you? You go up and say, oh, I like your hair. Wow. Oh. And she says something, you say, wow, I love your accent. Wow. And she starts warming to you a little bit. But you seduce her with your attitude, and she starts to think, well, that's not a bad guy after all. Maybe he does find me interesting, which is then you're at stage one on progress. Same with the horse. You can't ask the horse to do a lot of things immediately. You've got to romance the horse too, just like we romance each other. And remember that they are always listening. I got onto this idea when my dear wife Linda, she's 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, I guess, maybe even more, she started to show signs of dementia, meaning she was forgetting things a lot. She'd turn on the stove and forget to turn it off and stuff like this. And I'm thinking, wow, she's getting forgetful. But it just kept getting worse and worse and worse until she was pretty much bedridden and incontinent. And so I had to feed her with a spoon and change her 5 or 6 times a day, and actually lost my fortune. And didn't lose my house, unfortunately, but lost all my horses, all my fortune. But I did learn something from that experience, and that is her brain was certainly disconnected from my diction. she couldn't understand my words, but she understood explicitly everything I was saying because she read my tone. I'd say, "Linda, you look so beautiful today." And she'd smile. Now, she didn't have a clue what the word beautiful meant, because her brain wasn't processing these words. But my spirit was being processed. And then I got onto this idea that, that's what's been happening with me and horses all my life. They're reading me, they're not understanding my words, but they're reading me. So while I'm at Linda's bedside, I wrote a book called Talking with Horses. And like anything, I wrote it as a history of the horse, but I strung through it a romance story. If you want to get a message to anybody, wrap it up in a story. One of the great instructive results of that has been the Bible, the most popular book ever written, and it's full of stories. Some of them are a bit far-fetched. Some of them you think, well, yeah, that's a pretty good story. Yeah, okay. Loaves and fishes. That's a good story. Yeah, but however, it is a book full of very, very good stories. I read the Bible constantly, not because I'm particularly Christian or particularly anything else, but I do understand that we were put here by a superior power. Call that power God, if you wish. I think God's a good word. But every culture has its own God, and that's fine. But there's still a God. And I think we're put here by God to learn and to develop and to get better as human beings. And if you look at our record as human beings, I think we've done pretty good. But getting back to Linda, I started experimenting with her and talking with just my eyes because she couldn't understand my words. And pretty soon I had conversations with her by just holding a hand and squeezing her hand, and I'd get a squeeze back. I'd squeeze it harder, and I'd get a harder squeeze back. Well, that's a communication. No words are involved here. It's a communication. But then I'd work with using words, and I'd say, "Linda, I love you. You look so beautiful." And she'd go, oh. She'd give a little sigh. I'd say, "Linda, look, you're not sleeping. I'm a little concerned about that." She'd go, "Oh, oh." And so it's the tone of my voice. Again, I thought, wow. So I amused myself while I'm sitting at a bedside for a few years by writing this book, Talking with Horses. I thought, wow, I'm going to have an autistic girl. That'll be my hero girl here. And she has a horse that she talks to. And the horse would become an incredible horse. I had an incredible horse called Tower. And Tower's my model horse in this book. Tower won me many steeplechases, and he was a hell of a big horse. He was almost 17 hands, man of war on both sides. He was fast and bold, and not too many people could ride him, but I would win steeplechases by just getting on him with the help of 2 or 3 handlers holding him. Then I'd get on him and head for the starting line and make my entrance a bit late so that they were ready to ring the bell, and off we go. And I'd just let that horse go, and he would just run the field into the ground. It'd take me 3 or 4 laps to stop him, but that was him. So anyhow, I made Tower my hero horse here, and I was inspired by Linda, who had dementia, and I was inspired by her to communicate with her in ways other than talking. And then I started working on horses that same way, and it worked beautifully. So if you've got a horse and you're talking to your horse, just be sure and be secure in the knowledge that he may not understand the English you are using, or the Italian you're using, or the Spanish you're using, whatever, or the Chinese or whatever, but he will get your tone, and he will, with his spirit, tap into your spirit, and you will have established an extraordinary communication between you and your horse. I'm Colin Dangard, and my book is Talking with Horses. It's selling like crazy. People love it. And I wrote this not for money. I wrote it because of Linda and because of all of us out there who want a better life with our animals. And we wonder if they're listening to us. I've got news for you. They are listening. I'm Colin Dangard, and thanks for checking out my show, The Colin Dangard Show.